Hello everyone and welcome. Today we're going to talk about the most competitive and as well the easiest tanks to grind for. So if you're a new player and you want a tank that is going to be merciful towards you in the battlefield, then this is the right video for you. I'm not just going to talk about the tier 10 tanks that I'm going to show you, but I'm going to talk about the entire line from tier 6 all the way to tier 10, showing you which tanks that you need to skip, which modules that you need to get first. So we're gonna start with the first tank I've ever got, which is the mouse. The mouse is such a low rated tank. I don't even know why. It does have quite a lot of armor, a pretty good gun, and it's such an easy tank to learn. The only thing that you need to learn is side scrape, and side scraping is such an easy tactic to learn. So we're gonna go all the way down to tier 6. And now on the VK30, the first thing I recommend you to get is the tier 7 gun. Then you gonna grind your way all the way to the Tiger P. Ignore the engine, it's not necessary to get, because getting to the Tiger P on tier 7 is quite easy. It will not take a lot of time. Now when you get into the Tiger P, the first thing I'll recommend you to get with free experience is the turret. And then feel free to use free experience on the tier 8 gun, or you can just grind for it if you want. I just think it's better to get since you have a lot of penetration, but it's not necessary. Then give the second engine and get you your way to the VK100. Now when you get to the VK100, I highly recommend you to get the tier 9 gun first using free experience, because the first gun on this tank is incredibly painful. So I want you to keep saving up your free experience till when you get to the VK100, get the tier 9 gun, then the engine, and then get all the way to the motion. When you get into the motion, I recommend you to use free experience on the bigger engine, because this tank is incredibly slow. As you can see, it's 7.7 power to weight ratio. So adding up that 2 average speed kilometers and adding that 1.4 power to weight ratio really help. You don't have to use free experience to the bigger gun. You can just grind your way through it, since the bigger gun, the tier 9 gun, is already good. Now I'm going to show you how to equip the mouse properly. You want to get a gun rammer and as well enhanced gun line. You're going to get a refined gun, and you're going to get improved modules, because the mouse gets set on fire quite a lot. Then you're going to get improved assembly, improved optics, engine accelerator, high-end consumable, and enchant track. Now we're going to go to the brother of the mouse, which is the VK72. This tank is basically just the mouse, but with the higher alpha and a bigger lower plate. It's like a business deal. You're gonna get a bigger gun but a bigger weak point. We're gonna talk about the VK45, since we already talked about the tier 7 and the tier 6 VK. I think the VK45 should be entirely skipped. If you have enough experience, just go all the way to the VK45 and tier 9 and skip the tier 8. If you don't, then I recommend you to get the third gun, or the tier 8 gun, with free experience. You need this gun immediately if you want to play this tank. Then get the turret and get the second engine, ignore the third one, and get your way to the VK on tier 9. When you're gonna get this tank, just get the tier 8 1, do not get the tier 9 one. Get the tier 8 1, use free experience as well, you need this one. Then get the turret, then the engine, and then get your way to the bigger gun. You can keep the tier 8 engine for last, or you can just skip it if you want. Now I'm going to show you how to equip the VK on tier 10 properly. It's the same as the mouse almost. You're going to get a gun rammer, enhanced, refined gun, improved modules, and you need to get enhanced armor. Do not get improved assembly on this tank. Get this one, is way much better on it. And engine accelerator, improved optics, a high-end consumable. I don't think any one of these matters. You can get them if you want, but you can ignore them if you want. If you want to get them, get enhanced tracks. It's way much better. Now we're gonna go to the sweet America, which is the tier 10 yaw. This tank is amazing. It's very speedy. It does have a very good gun, and a very good turret and a pretty decent gun depression on 10 degrees. It's a really good tank. But we're gonna go all the way to the tier 6 M6. I think the entire tank should be skipped. Just skip the entire tank. But if you don't, then get the engine the first, grind your way all the way to the gun, and then get the tier 7 yaw. Do not just skip all the way to the yaw and ignore the big gun, because it's going to be such a painful grind for you. Now on the tier 7 yaw, I recommend you to get to the bigger gun, then get the second engine and get all the way to the tier 8 yaw. When you get to the tier 8 yaw, get the turret. Get the turret the first, use free experience for it, then get the gun, and then get the second engine, or maybe you could get the third one if you want. Do not ignore the second one. The second one isn't necessary, but if you want to get the third one, go for it. Now we're gonna talk about the tier 9 yaw. This tank is agony. This tank says pain all over it. If you want to play this tank, I recommend you to get the second shell gun. Do not get the third one. The first is hella painful. Get the 2 shells one. Use free experience if you can. If you don't, just grind through it. Then get the second engine and the third engine. They're very important since the tank is incredibly slow and painful. Get the tracks as well. The tank turns very, very slow. And now I'm gonna show you how to equip the tier 10 yaw properly. First of all, I highly recommend to you to get the 2 shell guns. You're gonna be like, why? Isn't the 3 shell gun have a higher DPM? I agree with you. But I think the 3 shell gun is only good for tournaments like 2v2, 5v5 or 1v1 scenario. I don't like the 3 shells gun because it does have a shell reloading time and it's really quite long. It's 2.5. So I'll give you an example. You're peeking on an enemy, you're gonna shoot the first one, the second one is gonna take 2.5, then you're gonna shoot, and then you have to wait 2.5 and then you're gonna shoot. It's gonna take you about 5 seconds and a half till 6 seconds of aiming and shooting. And of course, if you are peeking like 6 or 5 tanks, you're gonna get quite shot quite a lot, because when I play this gun, I've noticed I get caught in the open trying to empty my magazine. It takes me such a long time. That's why I take the 2 shell gun. It does have only 1.7. That's incredibly fast. You can shoot the enemy twice and fall back and they won't even realize that you were there. That's why I think the 2 shell magazine gun is way much better. Now I'm gonna show you how to properly equip the yaw on tier 10. Now if you're using the second shell gun, you're gonna use a calibrated shell, since the tank on that gun have quite of a low penetration. You're gonna get a chance gun line, you're gonna get a vertical stabilizer, and you're gonna get a defense system, because you're gonna notice that your loader and as well your commander are gonna get damaged, killed quite a lot, because they are the one who's sitting on the weak points on the top of the tank. So you're gonna get defense system, enhanced armor. You don't have to get any of these 2 on the bottoms. You're gonna get improved optics and as well an engine accelerator. Now if you're using the 3 shell gun, I recommend you to get improved ventilation. You're gonna get a supercharger and as well refined gun. This is if you're using the 3 shelled one. And another tank to get, it's the T110E5. A lot of people will hate this tank because it got nerfed, but I think even after it got nerfed, it's still a very competitive tank. I don't know why people are hating on it this much, but we're gonna go all the way to the tier 6. We already talked about the M6, and we're gonna go to the tier 7, the T29. This tank is an absolute beauty. The first thing I recommend you to get is the bigger gun, the 310 Alpha. Then the bigger engine is already, they're gonna give it to you for free, and you can grind your way to the T34. Now when you're gonna get the tier 8 T32, I highly recommend you to use free experience to get to the bigger gun, then get the turret, and they're gonna give you the engine as well for free. But you need to get the bigger gun. Using free experience is really important. Without that gun, the tank is absolute agony, absolute pain. Now when you get to the tier 9 yaw, I recommend you to use free experience to get to the tier 9 gun. Then you grind your way to the turret, get the engine, and then you can get the tier 10 gun if you want to have some extra penetration. but I do not think he helps out quite a lot. He barely even makes any change, but you can get it if you want. Now I'm going to show you how to properly equip your E5. You're going to get a gun rammer, an enhanced as well, a refined. You're going to improve modules, enhanced armor. It's really important to get on this tank. And you're gonna get an improved control because this tank turns quite slowly, but it's still quite speedy tank. And as well, you're gonna get an improved optics. And now we're gonna talk about the IS-7. This tank is an absolute beauty. It's speedy, have really incredible armor. The gun is pretty decent. It does have a horrible aiming time, but at least the tank itself, it's still incredibly good. And now I'm going to talk about the line of this tank. We're going all the way to tier 6. We're going to talk about the KV-1S. When you get this tank, I recommend you to use free experience all the way to the bigger gun, and then you grind your way from there all the way to the IS. Get the engine if you want. If you don't, you can ignore it. After you're going to get the IS, I recommend you to use free experience all the way to get the turret, and then get the bigger gun, that one that have 400 alpha. Then get the engine if you want, and you can get the other gun. You just have some extra penetration. If you don't, you can get your way to the IS-3. Now when you get the IS-3, I highly recommend you to use free experience as well to get the bigger turret, because the first turret on this tank can get almost overmatched by any tier 8 tank, and as well some of tier 7 tanks, let alone tier 9. All of the tier 9s will go through your first turret easily. You just read a paper. So I recommend you to use free experience to get the second turret, and as well use free experience to get the tier 9 gun. Is really important. And as well, you can grind your way to the engine. But after you get these two important modules, you're gonna notice that the IS-3 is such a godlike tank. And now we're gonna talk about the IS-8. The IS-8 is such a painful tank. If you have enough experience, I highly recommend you to skip the IS-8 entirely and go all the way to the IS-7. If I remember correctly, I think they gave you the gun for free. If it's not, then I highly recommend you to use free experience to get at least the tier 10 gun, and then grind your way through the turret and as well the engine. And then you can grind your way to the tier 9 turret. You can get it if you want, you can ignore it if you want as well. Get the engine and get your way to the IS-7. And now I'm going to show you how to properly equip the IS-7. Use a gun rammer, an enhanced as well refined gun, improved modules because you don't want to get amragged by an FV, and as well use an enhanced armor and optics, and as well improved control. And now we're going to talk about one more tank, which is the 60 TP. This tank is like a mix between an IS-7 and as well an E100, and this tank, let me tell you, it's an absolute beauty of a tier 10. But we're gonna go all the way to tier 6, break the tech tree for you, and we're gonna talk now about the 40 TP Habital. This tank is an absolute agony. This tank is an absolute pain. I think that you should just use your free experience and skip the entire line. If you don't, then I recommend you to get the turret first, then the engine, and then the gun all the way to the 45 TP. Now when you're gonna get to this tank, the first thing that you need to get is the turret, then the engine, then the gun. Now when you get to the 53 TP, 53 TP is an absolute beautiful heavy tank. I think it's one of the most competitive tech tree tier 8 tanks in the game. And when you're gonna get this tank, the first thing I'll recommend you to get and use free experience on is the turret and the gun. You need these two to get them immediately. Then you're gonna get the engine and you're gonna get your way to the 50 TP. Do not use free experience on any of these modules. I think that the 50 TP, just by the modules that come already with it, are still very good. These ones are better, obviously, the engine and everything, but the tank itself, it's still really competitive. It's still very good. Now we're gonna get to the 60 TP. I'm gonna show you how you properly equip this tank. You're gonna get a gun rammer, and you're gonna get an enhanced gun line, and as well the refined gun. This is when the important stuff comes to this tank. you absolutely need to take improved modules and as well protective kit, because both of them, they're gonna add plus 20% HP to your ammo rack. They absolutely help. I've played this tank about 250 matches and I've never got ammo rack. You won't get ammo rack in the 60 TP if you equipped your tank properly. And then you're gonna get enhanced armor and as well improved optics, engine accelerator, and I highly recommend you to get a high end because this tank gonna rely on adrenaline. I highly recommend you to get adrenaline, but if you want to get tungsten rounds, you can get it if you want, but I still prefer personally to use adrenaline. And do not forget about to use improved gunpowder because the shell velocity on this tank is quite slow. It's not that charming. So this was my opinion about the most competitive and as well the easiest tanks to grind for, and I hope you learned one thing or two and at least enjoyed the video. And this was Freak vibing with you, and I'll see you in another video.